we have our reviews table and we've indexed the restaurant and user IDs. So now let's build out the entire process of actually creating a review for a restaurant. Before we do anything, let's think about how we want to approach this. We don't want anybody, just anybody, to create a review, right? We want someone to have to log in order to write a review, because then if we don't do that, we'd be filled with a lot of spam and just random people writing reviews all over the place. We don't want that to happen. We want them to, at the very least, create a user or a login. So if we go into our reviews controller, we can do what we did for our restaurants controller, which is say before action authenticate user. And again, this is the devise method that forces people to log in before they can do anything on the reviews right here. So if we click on write a review, it's going to tell us that the new action can't be found, and what's happening is it's hitting that path first before it even gets into the controller. So this before action, because there's no action here, then it really didn't do anything. So that's why we're getting this page right here. But if we do a refresh, now it's going to prompt us to log in. So we'll just log in here. And now it's going to tell us that, hey, we don't have a new template. So in our views here, actually reviews here, create a new file called new html.erb. Do a refresh, and there you go, signed in successfully. And it doesn't give us anything because we haven't created anything in here yet. So in our reviews controller, what we want to say is review view.new and find the restaurant where it equals restaurant, and we have to define that right above it. So it says add restaurant dot find params restaurant ID. So basically this is just saying, for this variable, find the restaurant of this ID, find the restaurant ID right here, and plug it into the review. So if you remember in our schema, excuse me, we need to find the restaurant ID for this reviews right here. So this is what it's doing. It's plugging in that ID into the review variable right here that we're doing. So create a new one, and this is the review ID. So now if we do a refresh, we haven't done anything yet, but in our new view right here, we have to create a form for at restaurant, and I'll explain this in a bit here. Do f ended f dot comment f dot actually it's f dot text area comment f dot number field rating f dot f submit button. We need a submit button. And so what we had to do here was create a form for the restaurant and review. This is spelled wrong because it needs to know which restaurant and which review you're doing this new action for. So that's why we had to pass in these two arguments here saying, okay, this is for this restaurant right here and for the review that we're creating right here. So now if we do a refresh, text area, I spelled this wrong. There you go. Now we have our form right here. So if we say awesome food, give it 3 stars, now we don't have a create action. So we have to go in here and do create, and we actually don't need to set the reviews here. We do at the restaurant. And so we'll take this right here. We still need this. And now we can say review equals current user views build view params, and I'll explain that in a bit here. So let's create a new private method of review params. Params require review, permit, comment, and rating. What this is doing is saying grab the current user, and when you build out this reviews record, plug in the current user in that ID. So back into our schema here, it's just filling this user ID with who's currently logged in, which is in our case Bob here. So now we say review dot restaurant equals add restaurant, and we need to save that and then redirect to add the restaurant that we were on. And here we're setting this up here, kind of what we did up here, same thing, except in the create action we want to grab that, the review for that restaurant, and set it to what we find up here, which is going to be the same thing that we find right here. And a more conventional way of doing this so that we're not repeating this code right here is to create another method down here and call it set restaurants. And now we'll just make that single case. And then we can do this. And then get rid of these two. And up here, before action set restaurant, does the same exact thing. So that before every action, it goes through and calls this method right here, which is finding this restaurant variable. So now if we do a refresh, continue, it's going to say, hey, we don't have a reviews method. Excuse me, that's because if we take a look at our review model, in our user model, we forgot to actually create those relations. So there's really nothing tying them. Even though the tables have the ID on them, we need to still create the relations. So this belongs to the user, and the user has many reviews. So now they're both tied together, and if we do a refresh here, we get the page. So that's always good, and we don't see anything here because we haven't done anything in it yet. So if we go to our show page right here, created our show page of our restaurants, see no reviews are right here. So what we can do, say right below it actually, at reviews each do review, end it, and this could just be review comment. And before we even do a refresh, we need to go into our restaurants controller to set that reviews variable right here. So in our show page right here, what we can do is say add reviews equals find the review where the restaurant ID equals the restaurant, which is right here. Now if we do a refresh, there you go, awesome food. That was our comment. So took a few different steps, but we essentially in our reviews controller authenticated the user, found the review, created a review and setting the restaurant ID to @restaurant, which is found down here, created it, set the user to the current user, set again that ID to the restaurant ID right here, saved it, redirect it to the show page here. And then we had to go through and create the relations in our models. And then in our new form right here, when we actually create the write a review, we actually have to do a form for both the restaurant and review, so it knows which restaurant and what review we're doing this for. So a few extra steps in this entire process here, but we got it working, and I think the next step here is to clean up this reviews area a little bit and then add in some ratings.